Is the World Cup in chaos? It's all kicking off, and the tournament hasn't even started yet.
The greatest tournament in the world. Is this how the hosts behave?
Backroom staff and a referee barred from entering the US. Teams subjected to sniffer dogs and metal detectors on the tarmac, but not every team.
Something like this has never happened for a World Cup before, not even in police states like Qatar and Russia.
Many international fans haven't even got there yet, and some have had their visas revoked. But this is still the World Cup, and the excitement is massive. So why is this World Cup different to ones that have gone before? Will the noise pipe down once games start, or is this set to be a World Cup remembered for all the wrong reasons? Here's the breakdown. The FIFA World Cup is billed as an international festival of football, bringing people together from all over the globe to celebrate their countries on the pitch. But this year, the competition is caught up in President Trump's strict US border rules, and not everyone is welcome. There are 39 countries with a full or partial US travel ban under Trump's administration. Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal are all playing in the World Cup, despite featuring on the list. Democratic Republic of Congo is not on it, but has been placed under restrictions because of the ongoing Ebola outbreak. The USA's war with Iran has affected the Iranian team as they travel to North America. They've already had to move their training base from America to Mexico, and say they'll have to commute into the States on the day of their games. And Iran's football body claims FIFA revoked its ticket allocation for their group stage matches. The US State Department says the necessary visas have been issued, and they will not allow the Iranian team to abuse this system to sneak terrorists into the United States under false pretenses. Another World Cup country on the travel ban list is Senegal. They faced security measures on the tarmac when they landed in the US. Elsewhere, the Uzbekistan team was inspected by sniffer dogs when they arrived at a stadium in New York for a friendly. Amid accusations that the US has been hostile to its international visitors, New York's Democratic Mayor Zohran Mamdani released a welcome video.
Remember that we're all neighbors, so please treat everyone who's working hard to make your visit special with respect, and they'll return the favor.
These restrictions haven't only affected teams. Somalian referee Omar Abdelkadir Artan was selected by FIFA as one of the World Cup's 52 refs, but he was refused entry to the USA over vetting concerns.
And I wanted to thank for FIFA for supporting me all the way, and Somali people also.
He says he was given an 11-hour immigration grilling before being sent back to Turkey, where his flight had come from. Somalia is on Trump's travel ban list, and the administration has pushed for Somali deportations in the past. FIFA found ways to bypass national immigration rules for ticket holders at the last 3 World Cups in Brazil, Russia and Qatar. But this time seems different. They have distanced themselves from the Artan decision, confirming he will not referee in the competition and saying they do not get involved in host country immigration processes.
We'll start with 48 teams.
From ticket prices and a water bottle ban U-turn to visa issues and security concerns, a messy stage has been set for football's biggest event. Controversies are now piling up as the World Cup curtain is about to be raised. Some have called this a World Cup of chaos, and critics say Trump has made the US a hostile environment for certain teams and fans. So are these strict security checks and visa restrictions normal? Are they fair? And how unusual is all of this compared to other World Cups? Well, to help answer those questions, I'm going to bring in Miguel Delaney. He's the chief football correspondent from The Independent and is in New Jersey covering the World Cup. Miguel, great to speak to you. You're in New Jersey, aren't you? What's going on there?
Well, there is a bit of World Cup atmosphere. I took a walk around New York last night, and obviously there's kind of iconography everywhere. There is a buzz. You see a lot of shirts. We are actually about 15 minutes away from MetLife Stadium, where the final will be held. And yeah, it's just, I suppose, it's one of many places where anticipation is building. There's talk it's not building everywhere, but I suppose that speaks to one of the issues with this World Cup, given just the sheer scale of it, the size of it. I'm in New Jersey, which is obviously where the final is going to be held. And yet the main event this week feels like, well, there's two in Mexico City, one being Gianni Infantino's opening press conference, his equivalent of the I Feel in Qatar, and obviously the opening game between Mexico and South Africa.
But before we got to all of that, we've had so many viral moments already. Let's talk about the Somalian referee. What's gone on with that, and what have you heard?
Well, I mean, like the simplest way to put it is a referee would have celebrated a 20-year career or so in African football, who is considered one of the most accomplished referees on the continent. Somehow, after what you would presume is a long, or at least what should be, a long vetting process by FIFA, where all of this is heralded, where they're supposed to be kind of in dialogue with the hosts about exactly this, he somehow is in a situation where he actually gets to the point of entry in the United States, is forced into long interviews, and is then turned away. Now, there's obviously been a bit of a briefing war after this, where Andrew Giuliani, the White House chief of the World Cup, had been talking afterwards about how that Artan had been talking to bad actors, as he put it, which are pretty extraordinary claims to throw out, especially with no evidence. And when he was asked for evidence, I think by some news reporters, he said he couldn't provide any. It's difficult not to put this story in a wider context, obviously about general United States immigration policies, but also more specifically with the Trump administration, where there has been an executive order which has been colloquially referred to as the Muslim ban, and so far all of the countries that have faced issues at this World Cup have been Muslim countries, and also his own public attitudes to Somalia and some of the frankly disgraceful things he has said about the country and migrants from the country. And Artan himself said in an interview with the New York Times, he felt it was about his country. It's an embarrassing situation for FIFA, especially because one of the contractual provisions for a World Cup is always, and just to, I suppose, make this so clear, I think it's a point worth stressing. Something like this has never happened for a World Cup before, not even in police states like Qatar and Russia. And here you have this story, which is, I suppose, the headline out of a series of them. I mean, the Senegal team, they were were subjected to a tarmac search. This hasn't happened in the past because as part of the agreement to host a World Cup, there are contractual provisions, and this is in FIFA's own literature, that you have to have guarantees, and that's a very specific quote, about entry, about visas. And as Infantino himself said in 2017, you can't have a World Cup without the participants there. But I think it's just another sign of how this World Cup isn't fully in FIFA's control, or obviously raises questions on the very craven relationship that FIFA president Gianni Infantino has with Donald Trump, and opens up a lot of other questions, while also kind of creating just one other kind of, more negative aspect around a tournament that is ultimately supposed to be a global party.
Well, the Trump administration have said this is because there are strict checks in place, national security concerns as well. That's what you would expect the US to say. And they do have the right about who they let in their country, ultimately.
But there is another layer to this, because this isn't about so one of FIFA's defenses in all this has been, we can't dictate national laws and no one would want us to have that power anyway. But this isn't the cause-effect response thing. These sort of situations, and this is why it's so important that he was allowed to, or somehow in a situation where he actually ended up going to America only to be turned away. I mean, it's not like this is something that just dropped out of the sky. Like these are supposed to come from discussions over years. This World Cup has been in place since 2018. Trump himself has previously spoken about everyone being allowed in. And again, it's impossible to detach all of security concerns from the attitude of this Trump administration, how it's evolved over time, which is of course linked to how this World Cup itself could be used as a projection of Trump/MAGA ideology.
You will have seen Ian Wright's viral video talking about this. Obviously, really, really upset, and it's hit a nerve amongst fans. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought Rai was spot on. A lot of the issues around this World Cup, I mean, especially the way you pointed out, because the cost is one thing, and everyone's spending a fortune to be here, which has already created a sour note about attending something that is supposed to be so joyous. And then on top of that, given that cost, given what people are investing, you just have kind of bad news story or dark news story after dark news story. Because, of course, I mean, something else that's unprecedented around this World Cup is we have this situation. Again, this has never happened before, where a host nation is actually at war and has engaged in acts of aggression against a participant nation, which is Iran. And I feel there's so many times when I've been writing about this tournament over the last year and a half, because usually as a journalist with international tournaments, you start properly discussing the issues when the qualification starts. And in this case, it was in March 2025. And since then, there have been so many times where I've been writing things like, this is unprecedented. This has never happened in a World Cup before. I mean, there are multiple examples. And in that, I mean, it was something that Wright touched upon as well. The US hasn't necessarily been talked of in the way that Qatar has been talked of. I would say that's correct, though, because they are different tournaments to throw up different issues. I mean, ultimately, for all the kind of many controversies and justified kind of moral indignations about this World Cup, it doesn't have an issue central to the tournament, central to the staging of the tournament, like Qatar's use of migrant labour that was criticised as slave labour. But it doesn't need to be the same or worse or better to have so many fundamental problems. It has problems of its own, and they are many.
Let's talk about Iran specifically. Iran are going to be playing, they're going to be commuting into the United States, which also seems odd or unusual. What impact will that have on the psyche of the players, the psychology of the staff, do you think? Or will it have an impact? Will they just go in and think, I'm just going to do my best and that's all there is to it?
Sometimes in these situations, it can produce a determination in teams, a resolve. But the fact of the matter is, they should be put in this situation because it's a disadvantage. And this is how, like, some of the non-football issues around this tournament could actually affect the football of this tournament. Because Iran are at an obvious disadvantage to other teams. And even so, while the players are allowed in, some of the staff have been denied visas. And that means in a moment that is very emotionally testing for these players, leaving aside even their own complicated feelings about their own state. And the 2022 World Cup actually featured the example where the Iranian team, before they played England, they didn't sing the national anthem out of protest over what was happening in their state. But at this emotionally testing moment, they don't have key support members or staff beside them. And yes, it puts them at a disadvantage. And it's one of many ways in which the non-football issues of this tournament are going to affect the football.
With what you've just said, is this World Cup fair?
I mean, look, you can't but look to the disadvantages. And like Senegal, Senegal and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan were also subjected to searches. Senegal are a team that are considered a potential kind of outsider that could go really far in this tournament. And they've come into it kind of with their experience already soured, you can forgive them feeling humiliated, feeling angry about it. And again, it puts them at a disadvantage. So in the question of fairness, well, I mean, I suppose it's obvious that some teams are not being treated like others.
Donald Trump is facing fresh criticism after reportedly deciding not to attend the opening match of the World Cup in the United States. Donald Trump not attending to opening the match of World Cup in the United States. Can you believe that? The decision comes shortly after Trump's appearance at New York. Mixed game generated headlines. One section of the crowd reacted negatively during a public appearance at Madison Square Garden. Critics argue that the incident highlighted the risk Trump faces when appearing before audiences that are not made up primarily for supporters. Meanwhile, concerns surrounding the World Cup continue to grow. Several civil rights groups and immigration advocates have raised questions about travel restrictions, visa issues, and the role of immigration enforcement during the tournament. One controversy involves a Somali referee who has reportedly denied entry into the United States despite being selected for international football events. Do you know? The situation has fueled criticism from those who believe the World Cup should be an opportunity to welcome athletes and fans from around the world. At the same time, labor groups and activists have organized demonstrations around tournament venues, calling for improved worker protections and expressing concern about immigration policies. Supporters of Trump argue that security remains the top priority and the administration is focused on ensuring the safety of athletes, fans, and visitors throughout the tournament. However, critics say the growing controversies risk overshadowing what should be one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Biggest sporting event in the world. Whether Trump's absence from the opening match was a political calculation or simply a scheduling decision remains unclear. But as the World Cup begins, the focus is increasingly shifting from the games themselves to the political debates surrounding at the event. Subscribe for more.